While the eyes of the world were fixed on the Middle East and the stock market bubble, a silent signal was sent from the Kremlin. Late last night, intelligence sources confirmed a massive, coordinated movement of physical assets into the Russian Federation. We are not talking about gold this time. We are talking about silver. Reports indicate that state-owned Russian banks have executed a series of off-market transactions to acquire upwards of 5,000 tons of industrial and monetary silver. This is not a trade. This is a strategic accumulation. Vladimir Putin knows something the West is ignoring. In a protracted conflict, silver is more valuable than oil. The metal has left the Western vaults, and it is never coming back. To understand this move, you have to understand Gokran, the Russian state fund for precious metals. For years, they hoarded gold. Now, their mandate has shifted. They are aggressively buying silver. Why? Because silver is the Achilles heel of the NATO military-industrial complex. By cornering the market on silver, Russia isn't just protecting its wealth, it is degrading the West's ability to manufacture advanced weaponry. Every cruise missile, every fighter jet, and every satellite requires silver. By taking 5,000 tons off the market, Russia has effectively fired a shot across the bow of the U.S. defense industry without launching a single missile. The United States weaponized the dollar against Russia, freezing their reserves and kicking them out of SWIFT. This move to silver is Russia's answer. You cannot sanction a physical bar of silver sitting in a vault in Moscow. You cannot freeze it. You cannot track it. Russia is moving its wealth from the digital ledger, where the U.S. has power, to the physical world, where possession is law. They are trading their oil and gas to friendly nations like India and China in exchange for precious metals, completely bypassing the U.S. banking system. The sanctions didn't stop them. They just forced them to return to honest money. Let's put 5,000 tons into perspective. That is roughly 160 million ounces. That is nearly 20% of the entire annual global mining supply. When you remove that much metal from the market in a short period, you create a vacuum. The COMEX and LBMA vaults were already critically low. This Russian purchase has likely wiped out whatever eligible inventory was left, and we are now operating in a deficit. The West is playing a game of musical chairs, and Russia just removed 20% of the chairs. And when the music stops, the price explosion will be biblical. Russia has transitioned to a full war economy. In a war economy, paper assets are worthless. Stocks and bonds are liabilities. The only things that matter are commodities: energy, food, and metal. Russia is self-sufficient in energy and food. Now, they are securing the metal. They are preparing for a long-term economic siege where the global fiat system collapses. While American investors are buying Nvidia and Bitcoin, Russian state planners are buying the periodic table. They are betting on reality, while the West bets on a bubble. This isn't happening in a vacuum. It is coordinated with Beijing. China drains the gold, Russia drains the silver. Together, the BRICS alliance is systematically stripping the West of its hard assets. They are trading their manufactured goods and energy for our gold and silver. We are happily selling it to them to suppress the price and keep the dollar looking strong. We are selling our family heirlooms to pay for a lavish lifestyle, while our rivals buy them up for pennies on the dollar. It is the greatest transfer of strategic wealth in history. Europe will feel this pain first. European industry relies heavily on imported silver for its green energy transition. With Russia hoarding supply and China consuming its own production, Europe is cut off. German solar manufacturers and French electronics firms will face supply shocks. This will drive inflation in Europe even higher. The energy crisis was the first blow. The resource crisis is the second. Russia is tightening the screws on the European economy, using silver as a geopolitical weapon. The irony is that the Western bank manipulation helped Putin. By keeping the price of silver artificially low at $25 and $30 for years, JP Morgan allowed Russia to buy this strategic stockpile at a massive discount. If the price had been allowed to rise to its true value, Russia wouldn't have been able to afford 5,000 tons. But because we suppressed it, we subsidized their accumulation. We paid for our own encirclement. The low price was a gift to our adversaries. Where's the CIA? Where's MI6? They know this metal is moving. Why aren't they stopping it? Because they can't. The transactions are happening outside the SWIFT system, often via barter or dark fleets. The West has lost its visibility into global trade flows. We used to control the choke points. Now we are being bypassed. The intelligence community is powerless to stop a physical trade between sovereign nations that reject the dollar. Every ton of silver that Russia buys is a vote of no confidence in the US dollar. They are dumping treasuries and buying metal. As more nations follow this lead, the demand for dollars will collapse. This will send those dollars flooding back to the US, causing hyperinflation at home. The Russian silver hoard is a bet against the American empire. And looking at the debt clock, it is a bet that is likely to pay off. Russia has its own massive miners like polymetal, but instead of exporting that silver to the West to keep prices low, They are now keeping it domestic. The Russian government is buying the production directly from the miners. This removes supply from the global market. The silver that used to flow into London is now staying in Moscow. This supply shock has not yet been priced into the market, but when it hits, it will be violent. Russia is working towards a gold and silver-backed ruble. By backing their currency with commodities, they are making it the strongest currency in the region. While the dollar is backed by debt and faith, the ruble is becoming backed by oil and metal. In a world of resource scarcity, the currency backed by resources wins. Russia is building a fortress balance sheet, while the US debases its currency to fund its deficit. The bullion banks in London and New York are terrified. They are short silver. They need that Russian supply to cover their positions. With Russia hoarding, the shorts are trapped. They cannot get the metal they need to deliver. This increases the likelihood of a force majeure event on the COMEX. The banks will be forced to default because the metal they sold on paper is now sitting in a vault in the Kremlin. If a nuclear-armed superpower is panic buying silver, what should you be doing? You should be doing the same. Putin isn't buying crypto. He isn't buying NFTs. He is buying physical metal. This is the ultimate smart money signal. When the geopolitical temperature rises, you want assets that have no counterparty risk. Follow the actions of the whales, not the words of the politicians. Part of Russia's strategy involves cyber warfare against Western financial infrastructure. If they take down the banking grid, digital wealth vanishes. Physical silver is the only asset that is immune to a cyber attack. By hoarding silver, Russia is preparing for a scenario where the digital grid goes down. They are insuring themselves against the chaos they might create. The movement of 5,000 tons is a signal that the window is closing. There isn't much silver left to buy. Once the sovereign nations finish their accumulation, the door slams shut for the retail investor. We are in the final innings of the accumulation phase. The price is about to be repriced to reflect a world where silver is a strategic war asset, not just an industrial commodity. An economic iron curtain has descended. On one side is the G7, printing money and trading debt. On the other side is the BRICS, mining resources and hoarding gold, silver. The world is splitting in two. You need to decide which side of the trade you want to be on. Do you want to hold the debt of the West or the assets of the East? This isn't just a story about Russia. It's a story about your survival. The global order is fracturing. The safe havens of the last 40 years, bonds, dollars, are becoming the danger zones. The danger zones, commodities, precious metals, are becoming the safe havens. The script is flipped. Adapt or die. Do not wait for the news to tell you to buy silver. By the time CNN reports on the Russian hoard, the price will be $100. Act now. Secure your physical position. Get it out of the banking system. If Russia doesn't trust the banks, neither should you. The bear has made its move. 5,000 tons gone. The West is empty. The East is full. The geopolitical checkmate is almost complete. While Washington plays politics, Moscow plays physics. And in the end, physics always wins. Russia isn't the only one. Central banks purchased a record 136 tons of gold last year. Now they are rotating into silver. Why? Because the gold to silver ratio is historically stretched. They know silver is undervalued relative to gold. By buying silver, they get more hard asset bang for their buck. This coordinated buying by central banks is the floor under the market. They will not let the price crash because they are the ones buying the dip. The put option under the silver market is now the Kremlin and the People's Bank of China. Russia is the world's fourth largest silver producer. If they ban exports, as they have threatened to do with other commodities, it removes 1,300 tons of annual supply from the Western market. This supply shock would be immediate and catastrophic for industrial users. We are one executive order away from a supply cliff. Putin has the power to squeeze the West by simply keeping his metal at home. It is the ultimate leverage in a resource war. The empires of the past, Rome, Spain, Britain, all fell when they debased their currency and lost their gold and silver. The US is following the same path. We have debased the dollar, and now we are losing the silver. The rise of Russia and China is not because of their ideology. It is because of their sound money policies. They are returning to the basics of empire building. Accumulate resources, build industry, back the currency. The West has forgotten these lessons, and we are paying the price. When a government holds real money, it cannot print endless wars and welfare. It has to be fiscally responsible. Russia understands this. By backing their system with metal, they are imposing discipline on their economy. The West, addicted to the printing press, views this as a threat. But for the citizen, sound money is freedom. It protects savings from inflation. Russia's move is a signal to the world that the era of easy money is over and the era of hard money has returned. The movement of 5,000 tons of silver is the physical manifestation of the transfer of power. Power is moving from the debtor nations to the creditor nations, from the consumers to the producers, from the West to the East. This is the macroeconomic trend of our lifetime. You cannot stop it, but you can position yourself for it. By owning silver, you are aligning your personal balance sheet with the rising powers of the future, rather than the declining powers of the past. The Russian accumulation of silver is the final nail in the coffin of the petrodollar system. For 50 years, the deal was simple. Saudi Arabia and Russia sold oil in dollars, creating artificial demand for U.S. currency. That deal is dead. Russia is now accepting gold, silver, and yuan for its energy exports. By refusing to accept dollars for their valuable resources, they are sending trillions of unwanted dollars flooding back into the United States. This reflow of currency is what causes hyperinflation at home. The silver hoard is Russia's way of saying, we don't need your paper anymore. Western media keeps telling you that the Russian economy is collapsing. They say sanctions are working. If the Russian economy is collapsing, how are they affording to buy 5,000 tons of silver? The media is gaslighting you. They want you to believe the adversary is weak so you don't panic. But the flow of metal tells the truth. A nation that is accumulating hard assets is growing stronger, not weaker. Do not base your financial future on CNN headlines. Base it on the balance sheet of the nations holding the gold and silver. Why silver? Because it works without electricity. Russia knows that the next phase of this hybrid war involves cyber attacks on the banking grid. If the internet goes down, or if the SWIFT system is hacked, digital money becomes inaccessible. Physical silver is the ultimate grid-down insurance. It has value regardless of the state of the technology. By hoarding it, Russia is immunizing itself against a total technological blackout. They are preparing for a world where the screens go dark. This metal isn't just sitting in vaults. It is moving along the new Silk Road. Russia is using silver to settle trade balances with Iran, Turkey, and Central Asia. They are rebuilding the ancient trade routes that bypassed the West for centuries. This new economic bloc operates entirely outside the U.S. dollar system. It is a silver standard for the East. As this trade network grows, the influence of the U.S. Treasury shrinks. We are being locked out of the world's largest emerging market. We must revisit the industrial angle. By taking this silver off the market, Russia is effectively sabotaging the green transition of the West. The U.S. and Europe have bet their entire futures on solar panels and EVs. But without Russian and Chinese silver, that transition is mathematically impossible. They have cornered the market on the raw materials needed to build the future. The West has the blueprints, but the East has the bricks. JP Morgan and the Western bullion banks are short silver. They bet the price would go down. Russia knows this. By buying physical metal, Russia is squeezing the Western banks. They are intentionally driving the price up to bankrupt Wall Street. This is financial warfare. They are attacking the solvency of the U.S. banking system by attacking the collateral it relies on. Every ounce they buy brings JP Morgan one step closer to a default. With official channels sanctioned, we are seeing the rise of state-sponsored smuggling. Silver is moving on ghost fleets, ships that turn off their transponders. It is moving in diplomatic pouches. The black market for commodities is now larger than the official market. The real price is being discovered in these shadow transactions, not on the comics. The official price is a museum exhibit. The black market price is the pulse of the global economy. The Russian people have historically survived currency collapses by holding hard assets. They don't trust the ruble any more than we should trust the dollar. But the Russian state is now aligning with the Russian people. They are both hoarding metal. In the US, the government tells you to trust the dollar while they print it into oblivion. The psychological break is complete. The East is embracing reality. The West is clinging to a fantasy. For years, the West sold paper gold and paper silver to satisfy demand. Russia isn't buying paper. They are demanding delivery. This breaks the fractional reserve scheme. You can print infinite paper contracts, but you cannot print a 1,000-ounce bar. Russia is calling the West's bluff. They are saying, show us the metal. And the West is folding because the vaults are empty. The bear has eaten the silver. The 5,000 tons are gone. The supply chain is broken. The dollar is dying. This is not a drill. It is a paradigm shift. We are moving from a unipolar world led by the US dollar to a multipolar world led by commodities. If you hold silver, you're holding the currency of the New World Order. If you hold dollars, you're holding the souvenir of a fallen empire. The choice is yours.